7 hours.
Don't let the fear of contracting the corona.
The news from Guyana, the region and the world. Compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom and powered by DemeraraWaves.com.
A very good morning to you with the news at this time. I am Deanna Jordan. The news comes to you with the compliments of Eureka Medical Laboratories. To begin the news, here is a look at the lead stories. The leader of the Liberty and Justice Party has formally appealed to the president to meet with the opposition leader on several key constitutional appointments. The Region 4 chairman is set to block an Alliance for Change-sponsored no-confidence motion against the vice chairman. Originally, a Jamaican company, Medicanja, has got a $15 million investment from a major U.S. investor to expand its medicinal marijuana industry. And internationally, India's top court has appointed an independent panel to investigate allegations that spyware sold to governments was used to hack phones of MPs, activists, and journalists. The details of these and other stories coming up right here in just a moment.
Don't let the fear of contracting the coronavirus disease deter you from seeking the medical care you need. At Eureka Labs, we ensure the safety of our clients and staff with our rigid sanitization routine. This involves the use of ultraviolet lights to effectively rid the air and all surfaces of viruses and bacteria that may be present throughout the lab daily. The light works to rapidly inactivate microorganisms through a physical process that is invisible to human eye. So the next time you need a checkup, don't hesitate to give us a call on 225-7574 to schedule your appointment.
And now the news in detail. Leader of the Liberty and Justice Party, LJP, Lennox Schumann, in his capacity as Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, has written to President Ali to appoint a substantive Chancellor, Chief Justice, Commissioner of Police, and a Chief of Staff. The Deputy Speaker is concerned that the non-appointment of substantive officials or confirmation of those acting in the offices weakens the state and asks President Ali to rectify the situation. Mr. Schumann calls on President Ali to urgently confer with the leader of the opposition with a view to securing his agreement for substantive appointments to the 4 positions. Mr. Schumann urged that the failure to rectify the omission to fill these positions with substantive appointments means the continuing violation of the spirit and intent of the Constitution. In his letter dated Friday, October 22, 2021, to President Ali, he stated that there are 4 critical acting appointments, namely the Chief Justice, the Chancellor of the Judiciary, the Commissioner of Police, and the Chief of Staff. Mr. Schumann highlighted that after 1 year completed in office on August 2, 2021, the People's Progressive Party government has ignored calls by the previous President of the Caribbean Court of Justice, Sir Dennis Byron, and the current President, Justice Adrian Saunders, for the confirmation of substantive appointments of the Chancellor of the Judiciary and Chief Justice made under the previous administration. To date, there has been no movement on those critical appointments. Mr. Schumann reminded President Ali that in November 2017, Sir Dennis Byron, the President of the Caribbean Court of Justice, called for the confirmation of the acting appointments of the Chancellor and Chief Justice. Sir Dennis had said then that the situation has moved well beyond what ought to be acceptable in a modern democracy where respect for the rule of law is maintained. Sir Dennis had said the Constitution envisages the judiciary of Guyana to be headed by officials who are substantively appointed and enjoy all the legal and institutional mechanisms to secure their tenure. The former CCJ president had said that anything otherwise is a violation of the spirit and intent of the Constitution. The Alliance for Change, AFC, is seeking once again to remove the Regional Democratic Council, RDC, Vice Chairman Samuel Sandy by way of a no-confidence motion. The RDC is scheduled to meet for its statutory meeting on Thursday, October 28. The clerk of the council, Mr. Donald Gadraj, has written to the chairman of Region 4, Demerara Mahaika, Daniel Seram, informing him of the motion to be placed on the agenda. General Secretary of the AFC, David Patterson, confirmed to News Talk Radio Guyana 103.1 FM that he is aware of the motion, which is to be placed on the agenda for the meeting on Thursday and debate at a subsequent date. Mr. Patterson has confirmed too that the impasse with the appointment of Sandy as vice chair instead of AFC's candidate Nelson Mackenzie has not been resolved at the top leadership of the AFC and APNU. AFC contends that APNU reneged on an agreement for the two parties with the majority vote together to vote APNU for chair and AFC the vice chair position. At the time of voting, with a casting vote needed, the chairman Seram voted for Samuel Sandy of APNU instead of AFC's Nelson Mackenzie. In correspondence seen by News Talk Radio, the regional chairman Daniel Seram has strongly reprimanded Mr. Gadraj for submitting the motions while informing that the method of submission was not in keeping with statutory provision, that he was out of order to inform the chairman of an agenda item when in fact the chairman sets the agenda. The regional chairman informed the regional executive officer that the motion was dismissed and will not make the agenda for Thursday's meeting. General Secretary of APNU had said on Friday, October 2020, a year ago, that the reversal of that decision for APNU's Samuel Sandy to be replaced by the AFC's Nelson Mackenzie would depend on talks between AFC leader Kemaraj Ramjatan and APNU chairman David Granger. The Liza Unity Floating Production, Storage and Offloading FPSO vessel has arrived in the Stabroek Block offshore Guyana. After traveling nearly for 53 days and more than 11,000 nautical miles on its journey from Singapore. Christened by First Lady Arya Ali earlier this year, the Sustain 1 certified vessel will now be connected to the spread mooring before preparing for testing and commissioning. The Liza Unity FPSO has been awarded the Sustain 1 notation by the American Bureau of Shipping, ABS, the classification society for the unit. It is the world's first FPSO to achieve such recognition for sustainability for its design, documentation, and operational procedures. More than 2,860 Guyanese have worked on ExxonMobil Guyana's exploration and development activities in Guyana. The Liza Phase 2 development will produce up to 220,000 barrels of oil per day from the Liza Unity FPSO, which will be supported by a total of 6 drill centers and approximately 30 wells. This includes 15 production wells, 9 water injection wells, and 6 gas injection wells. Phase 2 startup is expected in early 2022 and will develop approximately 600 million barrels of oil. Liza Phase 2 is expected to cost $6 billion, including a lease capitalization cost of approximately $1.6 billion for the Liza Unity Floating Production, Storage and Offloading vessel. The Ministry of Education has announced that students preparing for the National Grade 6 Assessment Examination for 2022 will write those exams in July. Education Minister Priya Manikchand made the announcement while holding a stakeholder meeting with grade 6 teachers virtually across Guyana. She says the dates are July 6th and 7th, but may change depending on the COVID situation in the country at that time. The ministry has urged teachers to ensure student performance for the assessment in 2022. Minister Manikchand explained that the 2022 examination will be prepared like the 2021 examination, covering topics up to the grade 5 level based on the consolidated curriculum. The teachers were also asked to make note of the students in their class who need textbooks, so that they can be sourced and provided. The Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation, GPHC, resumed offering various surgeries to patients. Health Minister Dr. Frank Anthony says the health institution had stopped offering surgery except for emergencies during the COVID surge.
I think as additional precautions, we stopped taking in patients to do elective surgeries. Because in hospital setting, it can be challenging if you have infectious patients with COVID in that hospital setting, then they can infect the other people. We took it as a precautionary measure, but now, as you would have noticed over the last couple of weeks, we have seen a drop in cases. The hospital is going to start, they're going to resume doing elective surgery.
Dr. Anthony says with the reduction in cases, the GPHC is working on a date to begin accepting appointments for surgeries. He urged that the COVID measures in place will be enforced to ensure COVID infections are kept at minimum or more so prevented. Minister of Health Dr. Frank Anthony says there is a decrease in the number of new COVID infections being recorded. Only 66 new cases were recorded and 2 deaths, which takes the death toll to 899. The number of persons hospitalized has seen a sharp decline to only 80 persons, of which 23 are seriously sick in the COVID ICU. There are now 3,239 other persons who tested positive that were told to isolate themselves at home. The record shows that 73% of adults in Guyana have taken a first dose of a COVID vaccine, which represent 378,573 adults, and 46% or 238,902 adults are fully vaccinated. The health minister says there has been a drop in the number of children being vaccinated. He urged parents to ensure their children between the ages of 12 to 17 years old get the jab. To date, 17,489 children are fully protected and 26,966 are partially vaccinated. And now in regional news. Come November 1st, the amount that Barbadians pay for the transaction at a bank's automated teller machine ATM, other than theirs, will be capped at a maximum $3. Governor of the Central Bank of Barbados, Cleviston Haynes, made the announcement on Tuesday as he delivered his latest economic review for the July to September quarter. He pointed out that the central bank was aware of the complaints from residents about high bank fees associated with debit card transactions. Against that background, Haynes announced that as of November 1st, there will be a standard fee of $3 for the use of a debit card at an ATM that is not of the corresponding bank of the issued card. In addition, he declared that carrying out a transaction at a place of business using the point-of-sale system will not attract a fee. He said the capping of the ATM fee at $3 and no charges for swiping a debit card at a merchant was an initial step. He said the central bank would continue to monitor and assess the impact and could further make intervention if needed. Brazilian senators have voted to recommend charging President Jair Bolsonaro over his handling of the devastating COVID pandemic. A Senate panel backed a report calling for charges against Mr. Bolsonaro, including crimes against humanity, after 600,000 deaths from the coronavirus. The findings will be sent to the chief prosecutor, a Bolsonaro appointee. The president has maintained he is guilty of absolutely nothing, but the crisis has dented his popularity. Brazil's death toll is second only to that of the United States. There is no guarantee this vote will lead to actual criminal charges, as the report's recommendations must now be assessed by Prosecutor General Augusto Aras, who is expected to protect the president. The report alleges that Mr. Bolsonaro's government pursued a policy of allowing coronavirus to rip through the country in the hope of achieving herd immunity. It describes the president as the main person responsible for the errors committed by the federal government during the pandemic. The report's lead author, centrist Senator Renan Calheiros, called for the panel's recommendation to charge President Bolsonaro with crimes against humanity to be submitted to the International Criminal Court. But a referral would only be a step in a lengthy process in which it would be up to the ICC to determine the merits of the case and whether to take it forward. Jamaican company Medicanja has received a major boost with an investment of $15 million from major U.S. investor Noble Capital Fund and leading international management consultant Dr. Trevor Hamilton. Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce Audley Shaw said this is a part of $100 million investment the fund will make in Jamaican projects over the next 3 years. Mr. Shaw said this will enable Jamaica to access the global nutraceuticals market, which was valued at more than $400 billion in 2020 and is expected to grow at 8.9% from 2020 to 2028. The Jamaican Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce said the $15 million investment will create more than 200 jobs in the short term and annual exports of more than $10 million. Founded in 2013 by Dr. Henry Lowe, Medicanja is Jamaica's first registered cannabis company and has 10 patents pending with the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office and 12 pharmaceutical products approved by the Jamaican Health Ministry. Shaw said the U.S. Congress had approved the revised Safe Banking Act for the cannabis industry to become bankable, and this will go to the U.S. Senate for final approval shortly. He also noted that the World Health Organization has removed medical cannabis from the list of dangerous drugs. And now for the international news, here's the latest coming from the BBC World Service.
BBC News. Hello, this is Jerry Smith. The Indian Supreme Court has appointed an independent panel to investigate allegations that the government used Israeli-made spyware to snoop on journalists and opposition politicians. The court said the alleged violation of privacy needed to be examined as it affected people's rights and freedom. Rajini Vaidyanathan is in New Delhi.
A committee headed by a former Supreme Court judge has been given 8 weeks to investigate claims that spyware, known as Pegasus, was used to illegally snoop on critics of India's government. The phone numbers of activists, politicians and journalists were on a database linked to clients of the Israeli firm NSO, which developed the software. In announcing an inquiry, India's Chief Justice, N.V. Ramana, said allegations of a violation of privacy needed to be examined, and that technology may be having a chilling effect on press freedom in India.
A new law passed in Hong Kong has given the authorities more powers to ban films that are thought to violate China's national security interests. Those showing banned films could face up to 3 years imprisonment. Martin Yip is in Hong Kong.
The bill was passed by Hong Kong's opposition-free legislature by a simple show of hands. The law will now require censors to determine whether a film contains elements deemed contrary to the strict national security law imposed last year by Beijing. Critics say the legal change is a further attack on freedom of expression that will stifle Hong Kong's once vibrant film industry. Lawmakers said that the bill was in full compliance with human rights laws.
A Brazilian Senate inquiry has given final approval to a report recommending President Jair Bolsonaro faces a series of criminal indictments over his handling of the world's second highest number of COVID deaths. Katie Watson is in Brasilia.
Just before the vote, leading senators delivered impassioned speeches. Renan Calheiros, the man in charge of the final report, said the inquiry had slowed down the clock of death in Brazil. Another senator underlined how important the process had been to put pressure on the government and speed up vaccinations. And they paid tribute to those on the front line of containing the pandemic. But for many, it's too little too late. The families of the more than 600,000 people who died from the virus will be wanting to know where this inquiry will lead. Will Bolsonaro have to stand up in court to defend his actions? Many people here doubt justice will be done.
Two Sudanese trade unions say they'll take action against the military coup that took place on Monday. The workers at the State Petroleum Company are joining the civil disobedience movement, while the doctors' union says it will enter a general strike. Demonstrations demanding civilian rule are continuing. BBC News. Senators in Poland are debating a government plan to build a $400 million wall along part of its border with Belarus to stop migrants trying to enter illegally. In recent months, Poland, Lithuania and Latvia have seen a surge in migrants, mostly from the Middle East, trying to enter their territory from Belarus. The authorities in the Pakistani capital Islamabad have increased security measures to prevent Islamists from a banned organisation from marching into the city. Roads and key junctions leading to Islamabad are being blocked with containers and barbed wire to stop members of the Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan, who've been demanding the release of their leader. A court in Britain is hearing an appeal by the US government against a decision to block the extradition of the founder of the WikiLeaks website, Julian Assange. In January, a judge ruled that Mr. Assange was at risk of suicide if extradited to face trial in the US for publishing military secrets. China has ordered most cities to stop building skyscrapers, warning that local officials who authorise such projects will be held accountable for life. Celia Hatton has more details.
China's now home to some of the world's most extreme skyscrapers, including the 128-story Shanghai Tower that looms over the country's financial centre. But attitudes are changing. Earlier this year, a tall building in Shenzhen in southern China had to be evacuated because it was shaking. Soon after, Beijing banned the construction of buildings more than 500 metres high over concerns that some buildings were approved with little concern for practicality or safety. And now, tighter restrictions. Any city with a population under 3 million cannot build anything taller than 150 metres, and mid-sized cities cannot exceed 250 metres.
And that's the BBC News.
The news came to you with the compliments of Eureka Medical Laboratories.
A COVID-19 PCR test is now mandatory for many routine activities, including travel and return-to-work purposes. At Eureka, our trained and experienced staff will ensure confidentiality while your test is conducted in a professional and timely manner, which results in just 48 hours. So the next time you require an efficient and hassle-free PCR COVID-19 test, call 624-8378, 608-8378, or 623-7233 to schedule your appointment. You can also ask about our house call testing service.
And now to end the news, here is a recap of the leads. The leader of the Liberty and Justice Party has formally appealed to the president to meet with the opposition leader on several key constitutional appointments. The Region 4 chairman is set to block an Alliance for Change-sponsored no-confidence motion against the vice chairman. Regionally, a Jamaican company, Medicanja, has got a $15 million investment from a major U.S. investor to expand its medicinal marijuana industry. And internationally, India's top court has appointed an independent panel to investigate allegations that spyware sold to governments was used to hack phones of MPs, activists, and journalists. And that's the end of the news.
This has been the news, compiled in the News Talk Radio Newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com/demwaves.
News Talk Radio Guyana is the station for you, bringing you news updates every hour, major news 3 times a day, edutainment on a higher level, shows like Beat the Clock, Brunch on the Coast, The Afternoon Jam, Youth's Perspective. It's a station that goes wherever you go, streaming online at www.bit.ly/newstalk1031. It's News Talk Radio Guyana 103.1.